major land fraud cases have been surfacing, and in the chain of events, you find that there is a surveyor's plan somewhere, or there is work that a surveyor has done. Is it that surveyors are being used, or are surveyors complicit? And does the profession have the courage to speak out publicly against this?
First, let me say that fraud is everywhere. It's not only confined to surveys, so you'll get it everywhere, in planning, in architecture, in engineering. There are people who believe in shortcuts. There are people who do not have integrity, right? And unfortunately, whether you're a professional or not, and you don't have integrity, then you will do funny things. Yeah, because where you see plots or demarcations being undertaken on a parcel of land where ownership is in question, there must be a surveyor who is doing that, helping those people to be able to do that. Because without that, then they would have certain challenges. Yeah, so there must be somebody, one of us, who does not have that integrity to be able to do that. And that's why we say that if you have been told to go and do some work, you also need to do your own due diligence. So don't let the client come and tell you, this is a search, I've already done the search. The search shows that I'm the one who owns the land, so now go and do the survey. Go and do your own due diligence. Do your own search and quote for it. Yeah. And tell the client that, no, I cannot use your search. I have to use my own means to be able to verify whether this is correct or not. So that before you go to the ground to do work on any parcel of land, you verified to some degree of certainty that that land belongs to that person who has told you to go and do the work. So yes, I can say that we have the courage, and that at ISK we have been dealing with cases which are brought to us. Of course, ISK is a professional body. We are limited in terms of what we can be able to do to you. We can suspend you, we can expel you, but in some cases we also refer these cases to the Land Surveyors Board, who have the police power to be able to deal with these issues. But of course, there must be concerted efforts to be able to deal with these issues, because when you see this land fraud, it is not just the surveyor or the so-called surveyor. In most cases, they are quacks. And when I say quack, I mean somebody who is a quack. I'm not saying somebody who is not licensed. I'm saying somebody who is a quack. You'll find that the police are involved. You'll find that the intelligence are involved. You'll find that the judiciary people are involved. You'll find that people who are working in the land registry are involved. It's an entire system, right? It's an entire system that works on such kind of things. Yes.
So what is that one thing you'd tell someone who is, I'd say, has been affected by this? How would they what is their point of recourse?
We have been in the media talking about such kind of issues, and we have told them that work with professionals. Don't just pick anybody who says I'm a surveyor and work with them. You can go to the Land Surveyors Board and you can check, is that person listed? Is he a licensed surveyor? Is he an approved assistant? You can come to ISK, you can check, so that we can tell you to some degree of certainty whether this is the person that you need to be able to engage. So not everybody who calls himself a surveyor is a surveyor. Just like if you go to a hospital, not everybody who has a white lab coat is a doctor. But you'll find that people in the village mostly, anybody who puts on a lab coat, white lab coat, is a doctor. And to that, we have seen even morticians being called doctors. And they roam the village injecting people with questionable drugs, and people die because of those kind of things, right? So find out who is a doctor and assign that label of a surveyor to the correct person.
In the same breath, speaking of professionals getting remunerated well for their services, someone hiring a surveyor today, a Kenyan, who has no idea about what a fair price looks like, because we get these questions a lot. How much would you charge for this survey? And one surveyor will quote 10,000 shillings and another will quote 80,000 shillings. Does ISK have a way of sort of like speaking out and telling what are the standard prices for those jobs that are done?
Okay, first, we need to understand one thing, that we have the the Land Surveyors Board, and we have also the Survey Act. And within it, if we look at, I think is that Schedule 8, they have provided for how the fees should be computed or charged. So it's important that people then follow through how that schedule, what the schedule says, so that they can be able to charge consistently and correctly. But I know that when the Competitions Authority was created, and we have the Competitions Authority Act, they said that those kind of things are creating sort of like a cartel-like kind of a business, etc. But of course, I think when we are coming up with that act for competitions, they didn't look at it critically to see that already we had some existing laws, and therefore the laws should not contradict one another, because in this case now you say the Survey Act is saying that you should do this, but the Competitions Authority Act is saying that the price should be determined by the market. So if the market says that they want to pay 10,000, they should pay 10,000. I think there is still a place for us to offer guidelines on what needs to be charged, to offer the guidelines. So, we can say that it should not be less than 20,000, or it should not be above 50,000. It should say be between, say, 20,000 and 50,000, so that at the end of the day, when you are paid, it should be able to sustain you. Because, if a professional is not being paid properly, then they will do a shortcut. Either you will not deliver the work, or you will cut out on certain things, and so on and so forth. And that's why when we say you're a professional, it means that the client needs to pay for your transport, where you're going. They need to pay for your time when you're doing the work. They need to pay for the instruments or equipment that you're making use of. That's why you say, I'm a professional, right? Yeah. So all your costs are taken care of, because you're applying what you have within your brains to be able to resolve or to sort out an issue that is actually there. So there's need for us to provide guidelines, and there is need for ISK and other allied institutions to offer training to young people especially, so that they can know how do they quote for the jobs. Sometimes they're quoting less because they don't know how they should quote.
Yeah, true.
Right? They have not been taught. It's not taught anywhere in the school that this is how you need to quote.
If a fee schedule was to be published, who would call it price fixing, or who would say that it has been long overdue? I'd say a more updated version of the regulations, section 8 on schedule 8 on the fee pricing. Who would call it overdue, and who would call it price fixing?
It's not price fixing, because even the lawyers have their own code on how they actually charge for their jobs. So it cannot be that for them they are correct, and then for us we will be fixing. As an industry, as a profession, we must be clear in terms of how the jobs are actually going to be charged, so that you're not being paid too low, and you're also not being paid too high, to the extent that it becomes cost prohibitive. But at the end of the day, I've seen people doing sectional properties, and many people are doing the wrong things. When sectional property survey was introduced, it was required that you go and measure each and every unit. You do not digitize the architectural plan and then say that you've done the sectional property survey. You do not map one unit and then you say all the units are the same and replicate that. Because I've seen instances where maybe, for example, I've offered a quote to a client, and then the client says, why are you charging all this and yet you're only coming to measure one unit? They're saying, no, but there are 200 units. I have to measure each of those 200 units. But they're saying, no, but we have other people who are just measuring one unit.
The rest are typical.
Yes. That person is, first of all, committing a professional offense.
Yeah.
Right? And that needs to be punished. If somebody like that had a license, that license needs to be suspended. Right? And action needs to be taken on the people. So let's follow the procedure. There's a reason why we were coming up with the sectional property survey, or enhancing it, because it was there before, to be different from when people were just scribbling architectural drawings and using those to support registration. So let us not abuse this survey that is currently happening. Let us do the correct thing.
The next question speaks to people in the diaspora. You find someone who is in Qatar or Minnesota sending money to a relative in Kenya to, purchase a piece of land, and most of the time they hire an advocate to check the title. They may hire an engineer to check the structure, and what they almost never do, because no one tells them, is to hire a surveyor, who is the one professional whose job it is to confirm the actual ground measurements and the existence of that parcel of land, and if indeed it matches with what the title is saying. Advocates cannot do that, engineers are not trained for that, and valuers won't certify it. So when a Kenyan in the diaspora eventually comes home and finds their land does not exist, or their boundary has shifted, who failed them? And what protection or professional guarantee, if any, can they point to as someone who trusted a system they cannot personally or physically verify?
I don't think they trusted a system. They worked with an individual, right? And that individual that they worked with did not deliver what was supposed to be delivered. I think we can only advise and we can only advocate so that people understand that if you want to engage in any investment, then you need to work with the relevant professionals. And of course, we have said, where do you get those professionals? You can go to the Land Surveyors Board website, or you can come to ISK and check and be able to pick the correct person. Of course, as you're saying, you need the surveyors present so that a number of issues can be confirmed, whether the acreage, the location of that particular parcel of land, whether there are any encroachments, and so on and so forth. I would say that with time, these things are also getting improved. People are learning more and more. The lawyers are also appreciating that they need to work more closely with the surveyors so that these aspects of the work can be done. So, and of course, the courts have ruled in one way or another on some of these issues. So, advocacy, education, and of course, common sense.
Our next question is on our education curricula. What is that one specific thing in our surveying curricula that is no longer fit for purpose in 2026 practice, and who should be the one to fix that?
Well, if you ask me, I would say nothing. And it's also good to understand, whom are you training? Are you training a graduate? Are you training a technician? What are you training? Because if, say, you're training a technician, then you can focus on the technology, sort of like push button technology and stuff like that, because they need to be available and visible in that kind of a spectrum. But if you're training a graduate, so to speak, then you're training somebody who needs to think, right? And for me to train you how to think, I need to give you the history, right? So if you're looking at the surveying, I need to start you from the history of surveying. So that means that you're talking about plain table surveying, because then you're understanding the surveying from the principles. That, right? That how are the people doing the surveying before all these other equipment were invented. You can have a plain table, put it on a tripod, etc. You have a compass, right? You can target your object. You can use a tape to measure that distance. You can scale it and draw it onto the plain table. And that is what we are doing with the total station and even with the GNSS. So we have to understand it from those principles, because for myself, I was trained, and I did study a long time ago. I was trained at the University of Nairobi. We had a very good curriculum that was looking at the history of surveying. So we are trained with all those things of plain table surveying, and moving all the way even to the electronic distance measurement equipment, to the GNSS equipment, and so on and so forth. So you understand these things. There is also the aspect of astronomy, making observations to the satellite, to the the objects, the moon, the stars, etc., and using that to derive your time. Right now, we are so used to working with the GNSS. But what happens if tomorrow the GNSS stops working? What happens? Does that mean that now the surveying stops?
No.
Now, if you are to go back to the basics and you don't have the basics, what will you do? It means you'll be out of the profession because you'll not be able to offer anything. So people must understand what triangulation is, what trilateration is, what tachymetry is, before they can then now start talking about using an EDM, pressing a button and getting a distance. Because that's anybody, including people who have not gone to school, can be told, set it up like this, press this button, get that distance. Right? But does that person understand that distance? Right? That's why we see some people saying that for this work I'll use a GNSS. And you are being told, oh, you know, this GNSS, you can incline it 60 degrees to the vertical and you can still be able to get the points, or you can work on it under a canopy and you'll still be able to get the points. You know, some things are just completely not correct, right? But we, and of course it will give you the reading that you want it to give you the reading, but how will you know whether it is the correct one or not? So I would insist, or I would advise, that the universities ground the students on the basics, on where we actually came from, while at the same time pointing them to where the technology is, so that they can, the people that are being trained can think and reason and be able to develop better.
And moving and building on that, and I believe you touched on this earlier, there is this generation of trained young surveyors, and they are qualified, they are ambitious, and they are technically capable. And we've seen sort of like an exodus from the profession and from the country. You find some of them are either leaving Kenya for other countries, or they are leaving the profession entirely and starting to do other things and following other career paths. We touched on what these young people can do so that they, you know, work towards that license and becoming these professionals they want to be. But what would you say the seniors in the surveying profession can do to mentor them? Because I believe it's a two-way street. The young mentee comes to the surveyor. What would the senior surveyor do so that they can help and assist this young surveyor to grow?
Okay. First of all, these things are not new. The issue about exodus, the issue about changing careers, these are not new. They have been there. I can tell you, in my class, we were, I think we were 30, if I'm not wrong, 30 or 25. And out of that number, only about 10 are into surveying. The rest went to do other things. Some went into banking, others went into doing IT, others went into doing humanitarian things, others have gone into teaching. So, you know, at the end of the day, somebody chooses what they want to do and where their heart feels that it should be. So earlier on, of course, even before we started this conversation, we were talking about what did somebody study in school, and at the end of the day, are they doing what they studied in school? You'll find that sometimes people study things in school, maybe because your parents insisted that you study that, or maybe at that time you thought it was cool for you to study it, but then later on you realize, no, this is not exactly what I want to do. So you change. So and it's not really confined to surveying alone. It's spread across to other areas. But as you say, what can we do to help? It's to do proper mentorship, especially for those who are in the universities, so that they can be guided and molded into the career. But we also need to be able to provide them with opportunities, because if those opportunities are not there, then they will go and look for other opportunities, because at the end of the day, they have to support their needs and their lives. And but again, I would say to the young people that you are the one who can limit yourself. Somebody else cannot limit you. So if you have allowed somebody else to limit you, then at the end of the day, you can only answer to that. But when you're fresh from school, don't go and sleep. Finish the journey.
Kenya is rapidly industrializing. We're building roads, we are building railways and housing. And it's moving faster than any point in the previous generations. And surveyors are very integral to that. But you find we are not in the rooms where these discussions happen. What can we do to sort of as let us in, and what is making us get kept out?
Well, I would say that when decisions are being made, most of the technical people are not in the room. You know, when I was in the University of Nairobi and we were at the School of Engineering, of course we imagined that we were at the top because we had the best marks in school and so on and so forth, and we looked down upon the people who were doing Bachelor of Arts. We are saying across Harituku. But then I had an example of, I think he was a civil engineer. So he went to work for a company, and he was very good at what he was doing. But one day he quit. And what was the reason that he quit? Because his boss was somebody who had done Bachelor of Arts. And that was the person who was now directing him on what needs to be done. And he felt that this should not be the case. But in reality, that is what happens. That sometimes we look at ourselves as being too technical, and we just want to implement, but we don't want to be in the tables where decisions are being made. And there's nothing that stops you from being part and parcel of that decision when it is actually being made. So that means that take up the roles. Don't shy off. We have seen instances where, as a surveyor, you want to say that, oh no, the bosses will make the decision, me, I will implement. Once you've already assigned yourself to that particular role, then you'll not be given that chance. You'll find that sometimes people are told that, can we find a new way of doing this? But they're saying, no, you're insisting that, no, for me, I have to do it like this. Then they will replace you. They'll go and think about it and then tell you, go do it like this. And they'll tell you that if you don't want to do it, we'll pick on any other person to go and do it. So the only way to get to the table is by sitting at the table. The only way to make decisions is by participating in those decisions. So that's why we need to be up on issues related to policies. We sit where policy decisions are being made. Let us not be reduced to a level where we are waiting for other people. If you are head of a department for survey, you don't have to wait for the minister to tell you what to go and do, because the minister is not a surveyor. The PS is not a surveyor. So tell them what needs to be done and insist and stand on your ground, and they will respect you for that. Yes.
And you've spoken about this, the Sectional Properties Act. This was supposed to be an answer to the previous act of 1987. And for the first time, a Kenyan buying an apartment would have a title deed that described exactly what they owned: their unit, the common areas, and the exclusive use areas. Basically, their legal footing in the building. But as we both know, the act has gaps, and I believe other professionals out there have also seen these gaps. The professionals who are actually doing this work, most of the time they're not being consulted, as you've spoken to that. And this has created a perception out there with the public. And with the government rolling out affordable housing at scale and selling units to these first-time buyers and working-class citizens whose idea of buying this land, this would be their first major purchase, and it represents everything they've probably saved. They're not lawyers. They might not read the fine print. They're not surveyors. They might not know how the boundary works. So the question isn't exactly legal, it's more moral. If the Sectional Property Act has unsolved loopholes, if the affordable houses titles are being issued without watertight survey and legal certification, who carries the consequence when those buyers find out that this is not what they were promised?
Okay. So let me first say that, of course, it is true that the Sectional Properties Act for the year 2020 was an improvement of the one that was there from the one for 1987. And yes, it has facilitated and allowed for a lot of work to be done in this regime. But of course, when people are formulating laws, they may not be able to look and anticipate everything. And that's why there is a provision for amendments to the law to be able to introduce things that people may not have seen or they may not have foreseen. So I think all is not lost. And I think the main issue that could possibly be missing is on the issue of the first development. But I think we have acted on those things. I know you are saying we have been sitting on the table and making decisions related to these sectional properties, so that how to handle the issues about first development. And I think we are doing well. So far, the things are working out okay, and of course maybe you just need to tie it down with some legislative clauses on the same. But and then even as ISK, we have released some guidelines to members to be able to look at, to see on how this part of the work can be improved. I know that the efforts within the Ministry of Lands to be able to make certain amendments that would make it easier to undertake certain things within the realm of first development. On the issue of affordable housing, if you leave the politics out of it, of course, it's still a great idea that you can be able to create an infrastructure that people can be able to use to live decently. Of course, that's debatable. But there is the Ministry of Lands is working on regularizing the ownership of those houses. And I think the questions that you're asking about the ownership documents and so on and so forth will be sorted out through the consultancy that has been running from last year, where we have many of our members who are working on that particular aspect, and the issues about planning, a survey, etc., and the generation of the titles will be sorted out. In this case, they will be under long-term leases, not sectional titles, so that is the only form of ownership that can fit within those affordable houses, because of the fact that they are constructed on public land. So it's on long-term leases, not sectional titles. Yes.
And still on that, and we are now in the finance bill season, and as you've mentioned, there was sort of like a proposal to introduce phased developments, or an amendment that would accommodate phased developments and sort of like a super corporation that would manage the property. But that failed in the finance bill of 2024. Now I've been seeing some videos doing rounds on social media, and they are talking about conversion of tenure from freehold to leasehold of property. Now, you and I know that is misinformation, but I would like you to sort of like clarify what truth is there in that, and sort of like dispel those rumors that are out there.
Well, I don't speak for government, but the inquiries that we have made on this issue is that those things are not true. There were certain clauses that were there in the Finance Bill 2024, but of course those were stopped. And ISK did make its position very clear to the National Assembly in various meetings that we had with them on those clauses, and I don't think that those clauses can in any way see the light of the day. It doesn't make sense. First of all, let us clarify on something, that it is okay for freehold land, for you to pay rates on freehold land, provided that services are being rendered. What is not okay is for freehold land to pay rent. Because if it is your land, then you are paying rent too. So that is just fundamental. There is no discussion about it. It cannot happen. It does not make sense. So we are looking through on that to ensure that such kind of things don't pass through. And social media, of course, fake news spreads very fast. Right? Most of the things that half truths, the truth travels slowly. Half truths, negative issues, they travel fast. And they dominate.
And now this question focuses on ISK and its chapters, ranging from land surveyors to valuers. And sometimes their interests do conflict. And when that intersection happens, when you have conflicting interests, who decides what is right, and how do we move forward as an institution from that?
Okay, I'm not quite sure what you mean by conflicting interests.
You might have different views, but centered on different chapters. You might find one chapter is of this view, while the other one is of another view. You know, this is a union for surveyors, and surveyors have different views. So you might find that at times the other chapter wants something done this way, another chapter wants something done the other way.
At the end of the day, the decisions that are made by the council. And the council discusses, and as I told you before, the decisions are made by consensus. So, especially for my council, I've not seen those kind of pulls or pushes, etc. Because at the end of the day, you have a council that has been elected, the decisions need to be made by the council. Provided that the decisions are discussed and made by the council, you should not have an issue. Yes. The only problem would be if a decision is being made elsewhere, then it is being brought in. Yes. But give the council the chance. Look at the issues by consensus. And if you cannot agree today, you can agree tomorrow. You can postpone it and agree tomorrow. You don't have to fight. Yes.
So now we are getting to our last segment, which is the wild card questions and quick fire questions. These questions have been compiled from the general public and members of the institution and other professionals at large that talks about legacies and leadership. So the first question would be, what was the toughest criticism you've received during your presidency?
Well, not that I'm aware of specifically, but I think one of the issues that was there was when we are doing the elections for the people to represent us in the board. For the, I think Kura, Kera, and Kena.
Yes, I remember that. Okay. The next question would be, if an ordinary surveyor in Kisumu or Eldoret, not a friend, not a chapter official, was asked whether your presidency has moved the needle, what do you think their honest response would be, starting from year one to date?
Moving the needle depends on people look at things differently. So if you ask me, I would say yes, the needle has moved. If you ask somebody else, they could tell you they haven't moved. So it's a personal opinion.
Is there anything you would do differently if you were to go back in time and start your presidency all over again?
I think we have done fairly okay. I stand by the decisions that we have made. And it's because of the consensus building and the fact that we are making the decisions as a council. So nothing at the moment that I see.
Okay. These last two questions are a bit heavy. One of them touches on a court case, and I believe right now we can speak about it because it's done. And the other touches on something that has happened in our WhatsApp group for surveyors. ISK is not a government agency, and it's a professional union that is built by surveyors for surveyors. and its leadership derives the authority from its members who elected them. So there's been this issue whereby communication has been limited in the land surveyors group specifically, whereby only the group admins can comment. So when this decision was made, there was no member vote, there was no published policy, and there was no open debate. The members didn't just lose a platform, they lost their rights. And most of the opinions I've been getting and queries to this is they do not object to that decision alone, they object to how it revealed that the leadership was exercising its power within the institution. One of them I can say quoted that there is a difference between managing the institution and governing one, whereby management means controlling the noise and governing means tolerating the dissenting views and the ones that inconvenience you. So the question would be, was there any single member who was consulted before that right to associate was taken away? And if not, whose interests were being protected by the institution? Because the members feel like it was not their interests that were being protected.
Well, as I've said, views vary. But just for your information, ISK has a social media policy. And this is not the only platform that we have. We have many other platforms. We have a platform which is called ISK, which again is only, you can only share, it's only the admins who can share. And people can see what has been shared. So that, because one of the things was that things that were being shared at some point get lost. So that when you want to make a communication, you find that people don't see that communication because there's a lot of messages. You go into your phone, you find you have 100 or 200 messages. You can't read all of them unless you're very idle. So you tend to skip and looking at the last one. So in that way, then we are not able to communicate. We have a social media policy, which is very clear in terms of how people should be able to behave in a social media arena. The other thing that you need to be aware of is that the people who are held responsible for a social media platform are the administrators. Those are the people who are responsible. So if people abuse you, and we have seen this we have seen various court cases where people abuse you in a social media platform, etc., and the admins are not able to take action on that. You have a right to go and sue the admin, because they are the ones who are supposed to control whatever is being discussed in that particular platform. So people should be able to understand it, that whatever is happening on those things, the administrator is the one who is responsible. And so that is clearly specified out in the Communication Act. The other thing is that we need to clean up the WhatsApp groups, because we have realized that there are people there who are not even members of ISK in the WhatsApp groups. Even the so-called quacks that we talk about are also in those WhatsApp groups. So we need to clean it up so that we can ensure that we have the correct people within the group. And at some point, once we are done with the cleanup etc. that we are doing, then we'll be able to open it up and people will be able to communicate. But this is not the only platform that you want to communicate. And then also, social media, the WhatsApp platform is also akin to, you are in a class with 40 people and somebody spends the entire day making noise and you want to concentrate. And the person is making noise. You're saying the same thing, you're repeating the same thing, etc. You're either calling other people names, you're calling them cartels, you're calling them hooligans, you're calling them whatever, etc. This was not a platform that was created for you to abuse people, right? It was created as a platform to communicate, right? And we can choose to say that we'll use it as a way to just communicate to you. Because even schools now, or even church groups, they're there and they say only admins, because of the kelele sometimes that comes through those kind of platforms. So it's not the first time, but as administrators we have to take the necessary action. Yes, because anything that is there, the admin is responsible, not you, the admin. Yes.
So maybe we can say after the cleanup is done and everything is restored, it can be.
It will be. That one is not an issue.
Okay. Because a lot of us actually get help from such social settings because sometimes we are not.
Yeah, that is true. But it's not the only group that you can form. If somebody wants to preach to a group, you can also form your own WhatsApp group. Add all the people that you want, and then you can continue making conversations, right? Because this platform was created for the ISK Council to be able to communicate. If we cannot communicate, then it's not helping us, right?
Yeah,
Right. And that means that even we can say that we don't need to have it because we are the ones who are supposed to use it to communicate. Yes. Remember, even when the WhatsApp thing started, it was limited. Maybe you started with 256 people. We are more than 256, and then it went to 512. We are more than that. Then it was gone to 1024. There are still more people, right? So not everybody is included there. And also other people are complaining there's too much noise, etc. Other people are leaving the group because you are abusing them. So you have to take action.
Okay.
Yes.
The other question that a recent court case ended was on the, I'd say, licensing issue. Is this category of students, particularly from the Technical University of Kenya, who have studied the Bachelor of Technology in Surveying Technology course and Land Surveying course, and the LSB is sort of like doing its regulation mandate by, I would say, stopping them from progressing without the required education level. I hope I am correct on that. What is your take on that? Because some of them have studied through 4 years of university with the legitimate belief that they will be licensed. They have worked towards that, and now they're being told that you cannot achieve that unless you either go back to school. As a parent, as a leader, and as a mentor, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't speak on behalf of the Land Surveyors Board.
Yeah.
And the Land Surveyors Board is an entity on its own that makes decisions on its own based on how it is informed. As ISK, we have tried to intervene on this issue. And we have tried to have conversations on this issue. This is not an issue that is started yesterday. This thing started way back in 2014 or thereabouts when the university mounted courses on the BTech program. And there were issues or challenges to the program, and now it was actually being mounted. I think at the end of it all, it's the responsibility on this issue rests squarely on the university, because of the way they have also been able to maybe describe the course and to explain in terms of the contents. So the university needs to meet with the Land Surveyors Board and meet with the Commission of University Education, and they sit down and see how they can be able to best resolve the issue. And we have tried to do that. We called for a meeting of minds so that we could be able to discuss this issue and be able to escalate it to other people. But if people don't come for the meeting, then what can you be able to do? Right? If somebody says ISK is a problem, when ISK is trying to sort out the problem, then the problem is not sorted out. We know what needs to be done to be able to resolve the problem. But some of these things are not things that we think that every issue can be sorted out by the court. The court can give you a response which you never expected, right?
Yeah.
So here we are dealing with people's lives. We are dealing with the investment that people have made. So the universities should also be clear. They should not use students to make money.
True.
Right? And maybe thereby jeopardize their thinking or even progression. But at the end of the day, they have made money, but then what has happened to the students? So the long and short of it is let the university sit down with the Land Surveyors Board and sit down with the Commission of University Education, let them discuss and come up with a solution. As ISK, we can try to facilitate that. But this is a matter that is beyond us because it is being held or done by the regulatory board.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, somebody even went to court and said that ISK should not be examining. ISK has never examined anybody for licensing. We don't do that. We only do examinations for full members. That's it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we are on our last leg, and these are the quick fire questions. Fieldwork or boardroom? What would you prefer to do? Or
Both.
to be? Both.
Mm.
Okay.
You can't separate the two.
Okay. One surveyor, living or dead, whose career you would want to have most studied or followed?
Well, I had a mentor. I followed the footsteps of my dad, so I still follow that.
Okay. What is the one thing universities teach in this industry that is, I'd say, no longer relevant?
I said nothing. I think we had already covered that. The basics are important. The history is important.
What is one technology every surveyor must learn?
I would talk of principles. I wouldn't really say technology. Yeah, because if you look at the GNSS, it's about triangulation or trilateration, right? So it's more of the principles.
Okay.
Yeah. Technology will keep on changing.
What is the hardest phone call you've had to make as president of ISK?
I make phone calls every day, depending on the situation. Yeah. Some of them, I wouldn't really want to go into that, but we have made phone calls to defend the position of the surveyor, or the position of ISK in this country.
Okay.
Yes.
And what is the young surveyor complaint that you take most seriously?
There could be many complaints, but as I've said, I think the main issue is guidance and mentorship.
And if you had the ability to implement one reform tomorrow with no political consequences, what would that be?
Reform in survey?
Yes, in survey.
I think the legislative framework, right? We need to get on to amend the legislation so that we can be able to make accommodations for things that have changed.
And finally, what is your message to the next generation of Kenyan surveyors in one sentence?
Mentorship is key. And working with a professional is something that you cannot argue with.
Okay. Sawa. Thank you very much, Mr. Eric Nyadimo, for having us, taking your time out of your busy schedule for having us, and we appreciate your time and insight.
All right.
For our viewers, we'd like to thank you for also taking your time to interact with us, share your questions, and also view and participate in this interview. We are going to be having many more interviews with industry leaders, professionals, and people in the land and property sector. And we hope to engage with you some more. My name is Rambeka Derrick for Deeds and Bounds, and see you on our next episode of Total Station.